Hello and shalom to the YouTube world. My name is Noah Tile. I am a psychotherapist and rabbi in Toronto, Canada. For years now, I have been sending out a weekly Parsha blog and podcast called Torah Thoughts, delving into the areas of Judaism, mental health, and personal growth. And now I want to extend and create the Torah Thoughts YouTube channel. So here we are. The Jewish people are colloquially known as the people of the book. Our texts are our guide, our heart and soul, our way of life, especially when the words come alive and lead to action. And so I want to have a voice and text together in a specific kind of way. I am no artist, but I feel often that when Jewish shiurim or classes are shared, the source sheets contain light in their words, but often the presentation is just black ink on a white background. With tech today, we can make it even a little prettier. You see this with people like Rabbi David Foreman, for example, and Aleph Beta. And for me, being the farthest thing from a graphic designer, all you will see is just a bit of color to the sources to make them shine a little brighter. So I hope we can learn along together. My goal, and let me share my screen, is to Yagdil Torah v'Yadir, is to make the Torah a little greater and a little more beautiful. And I also have another goal, which will become apparent. Today is the 3-month mark from the attacks in southern Israel. There have been attacks on the Jewish spirit and body in its connection with Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. So the body and soul of our people feels a little uneasy, to say the least. But also we need to stay strong and connected and united. This channel wants to create meaningful content that strengthens positive Jewish identity and deepens our relationship to our tradition, our land, and our people. I feel that this is my response, and I hope that non-Jews from all different backgrounds, spiritual and religious, will find meaning and connection in this and join us in trying to make the world a better place. I want this channel to help shine the light on what Jews really are and who we can be. So I hope you'll come away with something valuable to your life through our learning together. So let's get started. This class is going to be a series called Awakening the Jewish Spirit, Following the Signs. The following the signs part will become a little bit clearer as we go, but for now, just work with me. So as I mentioned, there's been a lot of different feelings post-October 7th, after the Simchat Torah massacre. And really, in different ways, attacks on the guf, the body, Jewish people, and the neshama, our spirit and connection to who we are. So I think we need to go a little bit into the past in order to make meaning of the present, to make sense of it, and to learn better for the future. So we're going to start with the famous words of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, who wrote in Kohelet or Ecclesiastes, Ve'ein kol chadash tachat hashemesh. There is nothing new under the sun. So let's anti-Semitic awakening. So it's not just now. It's throughout history that Jew hatred awakens Jewish identity and peoplehood. We never wanted it in the first place. It should never happen. It started all the way back in Egypt with the servitude under the first dictator against the Jewish people, Pharaoh, Paro. So as we'll see, that the first reference of Jews as a nation, the children of Israel, comes during this part of servitude. So let's just take a look at what happened. Kam melech hadash al Mitzrayim, asher lo yada et Yosef. A new king arose in Egypt who did not know Joseph. Just looking back at the previous book of the Torah, the book of Genesis or Breshit, we know that Joseph was one of the main leaders in command in Egyptian society. He helped contribute to saving it from a famine and had great influences with the prior pharaoh and with the Egyptian community. And a short generation later, this new king comes up. We don't know if it's actually a new king or if it's just a new perspective or a new outlook, but they did not know. Lo yada, didn't have that connection anymore to Joseph, and by extension, his family. Vayomer el amo hine am b'nei Yisrael rav ve'atzum mimenu. Paro's talking, presumably to his own group or his own people, his own posse, let's say. He says, look, Hine, the nation, the children of Israel, are too powerful and numerous for us. Hava nischachmalo, pen yirbeh. Let us deal wisely with them. And then he goes on to just describe that maybe there's going to be a war, and this minority people is going to join against the Egyptians and take over. A lot of fear and paranoia, let's say. Vayasimu alav sare misim laman anoso besivlosam. So they set tax collectors over them to oppress them with forms of oppressive labor. Sivlosam, sevel means suffering. They created a world of suffering for this minority group. Now, it's just really important to realize that this is the first time ever that there's been a reference by a human being to an B'nai Yisrael, this people, children of Israel. Israel is the alternate name, the sort of higher name of Jacob, the patriarch, Yaakov. He was called Israel. It's a whole other story how he became Israel. But in previous book, like in the book of Genesis, when it says the children of Israel, it literally means the 12 sons of Jacob. Now we have this archetype of people of Israel, the B'nai Yisrael. The first time we're referred to as a nation is by Paro, and it's in anti-Semitism. So you could say that persecution began the career of Am Yisrael. And I just want to go through just a little bit, as to what really happened. What was the propaganda there? What was the rhetoric of Paro? Because it has to do with anti-Semitism in every era. There's a devaluing of history. Forget about what Jews had done in the past. Forget about the value. Let's minimize all of what Joseph did, right? As an archetype, a representation of the Jewish people. Let's ramp up the paranoia and suspicion. These minority groups, they're very successful. There's something going on with them. So let's make sure we deal with them. And it leads to hatred. Let's oppress them. That's sort of an archetype of anti-Semitism, success and jealousy. And so what's the Jewish response to this atrocity and hatred? Text says right after, V'cha'ashir ya'anu oso, kein yirbeh, v'chein yifrotz, v'yakutsu mipnei b'nei Yisrael. The more that they were oppressed and persecuted, the greater they became. Merubah, the greater they became. Ken yirbeh. And they spread out. They grew. They got bigger. The more discrimination, the more determination for the people to grow. And that's something that many people just don't understand about us for some reason. Persecution strengthens identity. And does not become a time for despair. It becomes a time for repair. And there's always a happier ending. So we know the end of the story. We're going to go all the way to the end. What happens? Vayosha Hashem bayomahu et Yisrael miyad Mitzrayim. On that day, Hashem saved Israel from the hand of Egypt. Az yashir Moshe u'vnei Yisrael teshira azot laHashem. And they sang a song, Moshe and the Bnei Yisrael. They sang a song to God. They celebrated life. They became ultimately victorious. And just to flesh out a little bit more about anti-Semitism, let's just take one more case study in Persia. This is in the post-First Temple destruction, way after Jews had built a beautiful temple, had a commonwealth, lots of conflict, inner conflict especially. There was the exile of the 10 tribes of Israel. But let's just zoom in on a moment in time between First and Second Temple in the era we call the Purim era, with Achashverosh and Haman. So Haman is trying to climb the ranks politically with the meta dictator, the meta king of many territories, the Persian king, let's call him Achashverosh. What does he do? Vayomer Haman lamelech Achashverosh, he said to Achashverosh, Yeshnu am echad, mefuzar u'meforad ben ha'amim, be'chol medinot malchutecha. There's this people, this one nation. Again, you see that idea of oneness, this persecution. Other people refer to us as one people, am echad. We're scattered and we're dispersed. Sound familiar today? Amongst the nations in all the lands and provinces that you rule over. And here's another kicker. V'datehem shonot mikol am. Ve'et datei hamelech einam osim. These people are different. They have their own religion, their own rules, and they're really stubborn and they stick to their own way. They stand out. And they don't follow your laws, Achashverosh. So what does he say? Ein shovel lahanicham. So in a way, you could say the first part of his sentence, the first part of his concern is kind of true. There's one people, they're scattered and dispersed. Okay. They do have their own laws, and they don't necessarily follow all the ways of the culture, but there's of course an idea in Judaism that we need to respect the laws of the land within reason. We won't get into the details of that. But the bottom line is he says, Ein shoveh lahinacham. It's not worth it to let them stay here. So you have this idea, you twist it, and then you say they can't be here. Im ala melech tov. If it's good on the king, I hope it's good for you. Yikasev lavdam. Let's just write off their destruction. How does that sound? And permission is granted. And you see this anti-Semitism number 2, and then there's more, and a lot of people have talked about this. Rabbi Sachs calls it the mutation of anti-Semitism. It takes all these different forms, like a virus in every era. But it's now this idea of the unknown other. We don't know them. They're mysterious. They have their own laws. They're very different, and we can't figure them out. And also, they're self-serving and disloyal. Self-serving and disloyal. But again, what happens with Mordechai, Esther, in the reversal? We see it was a time of opposites. On the day the enemies hoped to have ruled over them, the opposite happened, and we ruled over our enemies. This dread of the Jews fell on the people. Again, this change, we respond, we become stronger, and we unite. We don't fall into despair. And we responded with this napach energy. It was supposed to be a time of destruction. Instead, it was miyagun l'simcha, from sorrow to joy, me'evel yom tov, from mourning to a good day, a great day, a yom tov. A time with mishteh, we had a feast in simcha, and mishloach manot, we're so happy, we're extending that outward to the people we love. Ish l're'ehu, matanot levyonim, gifts to the poor. That was our response. We won, we got stronger. And these beautiful words ended it. La Yehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason v'ikar. We became light and simcha and joy and glory. And this is what we say during the Havdalah ceremony, which is the ceremony we do at the end of Shabbat and in the transition to the week. We start these words off as the strength of the new week, that we are light and gladness and simcha and joy and glory. So that's just a snippet of 2 moments, biblical moments of anti-Semitism. This pattern really persists in every generation. You can see seedlings of it beginning way before Egypt and way before Persia. It's this sort of moment we call the Brit Bein HaBetarim, an interaction between God and Avraham at the beginning of the Torah, in the book of Genesis. Hashem says to Avraham, Yado Teda, know, really deeply know, Ki ger yeh zaracha, be'eretz lo lahem. Your offspring are going to be strangers in a land not theirs. V'avadum ve'inu osam, arba me'os shana. They're going to be persecuted in that word, inu. They're going to be treated, oppressed for 400 years. V'gam et hagoy asher ya'avodu, dan anochi, v'achareichen yetzu birchush gadol. I'm going to execute judgment on the nation that you are serving right now. And in the end, you're going to go out with birchush gadol, with great wealth. You know this really began with Avraham and Hashem at the Brit Bein HaBetarim, but it really has persisted and continued throughout our history. And we see this repetitive cycle being expressed during the Passover Seder. We read this book called the Haggadah, which is basically how we understand and relate and experience our Exodus, because this is the holiday where we commemorate our Exodus, our leaving of Egypt. And we say, as a commentary on the Brit Bein HaBetarim, Vehi she'amda la'avoseinu v'lanu. And this has happened to our ancestors and ourselves. Shelo echad bilvad amad aleinu l'chaloseinu. It's not just once that somebody has risen against us to destroy us. Ele shebechol dor vador omdim aleinu l'chaloseinu. It's every generation they have risen up against us and tried to destroy us. Ve'akadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. And Hashem, the Holy One, blessed be He, saves us from their hands. There's always this beacon of hope. There's not a despair. There is a repair and rebuild. And so we have the Holy Hand, we have Hashem, and chutzpah leads to our life, l'chaim of Am Yisrael. And now we're going to expand on the positive response. So this anti-Semitism activating something within us, we need to talk about this response of positivity, this response of unity, this response of being more connected in a deeper way. And that's what we're going to get into next time. So I hope this was helpful to understand a little bit about the spirituality of anti-Semitism, if you will. So we'll see you next time.